and welcome to the Raptors weekly podcast. I'm your host, Samson Folk, and today a very special guest. I think we typically get together around the big moments of change. I think like free agency, trade deadline, now after summer league, in a season or an off season where the Raptors have, I would say, the fan base has a more vested interest in summer league. So Blake Murphy, staff writer at The Athletic, covering the Toronto Raptors, here to join me and talk about summer league, which he attended. How was that?
Oh, it was good, man. It was a weird adjustment to seeing live basketball for the first time in, I guess, like 17 months, other than the opener that I was at in Miami, or Tampa Bay, rather. The crowds were crowdy in and outside of the arena, but it was, it felt at least reasonably safe. The mask usage was better than I expected in Vegas in general. And then as media, you had to be vaccinated to attend. So in our media seating stuff, it felt reasonably safe. And, test before you go, test before you come back, test when you get back. We're okay. And it was just super nice to have live basketball back. And even if the quality of that basketball was not of the highest order.
Is there a sound of the gym that you like above all else, like the squeak of the sneakers or the bounce of the ball, something like that?
Nope, that's the sound of something else I like. My bad. I think it's hard to describe this sound, but I think it is because generally it's like a chatty crowd, because I don't think, you don't pay attention to, most people don't pay attention moment to moment the same way. So you kind of get this hush when big moments feel like they're going to happen, but also you get the like disappointment of when moments don't happen. So to give you an example, like on the high end, there was one sequence where Jalen Suggs drives home this enormous putback, and then coming back the other way, Cole Anthony draws a charge, and then Suggs gets up and boom, chest bump Cole Anthony and everything. And that was right before Raptors Warriors. And in Raptors Warriors game, there were 3 or 4 instances where Kuminga had the crowd in the palm of his hand about to do something similar and just like hit back rim on a dunk. Like I think he missed 3 dunks in that game. And that's my favorite sound. The sound of, oh my God, something cool is going to happen. Oh, damn. It's kind of lets the air out. And it happens more than you think because it's summer league and the quality isn't quite there.
And when you were in Tampa Bay, you dabbled in professional photography, sports photography. Did you follow that up with anything this time around?
I didn't want to check a bag. I figured with testing and all the extra restrictions that the airport was going to be enough without checking a bag. So we also, we had Jerome Chang with us for The Athletic. So he, that's kind of his realm. But no, I don't even know. I don't know if you would be allowed, like, I don't know if there was much photography at Summer League. Like, obviously there's like Getty photos up and stuff like that. Emma Brown couldn't do her Twitter job if they weren't, but it's I don't know. It was pretty restricted this year to where I don't think I would have been able to go up and down like I can at a 905 game. But yeah, maybe next time.
It's interesting what the internet attached to fandom allows people to curate, because if you didn't make the Emma Brown joke, I was going to. And who would have thought that you could be known as like Getty Images is your playground. This is your domain.
Poor Matt Morgan of Raptors Summer League team and formerly 2-time Raptors 905er posts a photo the other day on his Instagram with a Getty watermark. And I message him. I'm like, man, like, you're a vet at this point. Like, someone's got to get you these unwatermarked photos. You got to hit up the Raptors social guy, who I won't name, but does a tremendous job with their Twitter and their Instagram. You got to hit him up and get some real photos here. Hit up the open gym guys.
Yeah, there has to be a connect at that point. I totally get
That's how you know you've graduated from summer league status, is you start getting the pictures up without the Getty.
Yeah, I assume there's, people start reaching out. Like there's a point in life there's different tiers to how people operate and move and different freedoms and things you're, afforded. But I think if you become an NBA player, people should start offering that stuff. Like, should I take up photography and start offering it to the Matt Morgans and all the people who don't know? Is that a market inefficiency from me?
Well, it sounds like you're suggesting this operation runs entirely for free. So I don't know that it's a good money maker for you. I'm sure the players would appreciate it, but
I just want to be appreciated. Money is no object to me. I just want to be appreciated, I think.
Sure. Yeah, you got that blogger money. You don't need photography money on top of that.
Yeah, blogger money's got me looked at.
Am I understanding right from your tweets that you built your own palatial home this week too?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You got to save money where you can. That's the life. Okay.
That's how you get rich enough to build your own home, is doing everything yourself, right?
Yeah, that's what
I've clearly been cutting your hair yourself, and
I haven't touched it. It is just so long now, and I don't know what to do. But I feel like cutting it would be kind of an atrocity to what I'm doing here. It's very flowy.
Yeah, I know it's supposed to be a minimalist approach. Are you close to the point of trimming the mustache, even though you're letting the beard go?
I've trimmed the mustache like 6 times, and it becomes very apparent when you try to like bite into a burger, and on intake, the burger sweeps the mustache hairs and you bite your own mustache hairs.
Little soup strainer, yeah.
Yep, that's exactly it. So I've had to, not here, it's kind of wispy around here, but right here, I've trimmed many times.
Yeah, your Ryan Gosling nice guys area.
Yeah.
It's the one area it's growing well for you.
Okay, dude, like it's better than a lot of people. I like to
babies.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, my newborn nephew isn't growing hair yet. Do you want to compare your mustache to his?
Yeah, if he could come up and we could check it out, I'd be very happy to.
He's got a weird thing going on where his hair hasn't really grown yet, but instead of looking like his hair is growing, he looks like he's balding. Like the way his hair is coming in, it looks like male pattern baldness on a baby. It's not I hope this is a temporary thing for him.
So he and I have more in common than people might have thought with the male pattern baldness. Okay, let's get into the offseason. So quite a few people were confused at what the Raptors' overall idea might have been, the way that they went about. If you look last offseason, where I thought they took a rational risk in trying to maintain flexibility for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't know if that was commented on or acknowledged, but I think that is the conventional wisdom. This time around, some people think they might have missed out on some opportunities. Some people think like, hey, this is just what the market dictated. This is the position they're in. I'm of the idea that not getting Holmes seems like a big flop to me, because I also rate Holmes quite a bit higher if the reports about years were true and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the draft goes, I think that Scotty Barnes has made a lot of people happy, especially he's had a larger self-creation bump, I think. But what have you thought about the offseason so far? And do you think there's an indication of what the Raptors are trying to go for into the future?
Yeah, it's been a tough one. And it's a tough one to sort through, because direction-wise, it is a little kind of disparate or incoherent as a whole, right? Like, they're clearly, the Scotty Barnes thing suggests that they're looking at a longer time window, as does letting Kyle Lowry go. And you could move Goran Dragic later, but right now he stands out as a timeline misfit. Even Kem Birch is like there's still upside to tap into there, and you could, that I don't think they're signing him with the idea of trading him later, but there's certainly like a potential positive asset value flip there if he's as solid as he looked last year, and at some point they look to move him. But for me, the biggest thing is, like, look, I think if you're the Raptors, what you would tell people is, well, our additions are Gary Trent Jr. with an offseason in our system, Kem Birch, who we got at on the buyout market, but it was always the plan to re-sign him, Scotty Barnes as a number 4 pick, Precious Achua, Dalano Banton, David Johnson, So they would look at it, I think, and see, hey, compared to the start of last season, they've added a lot of younger pieces and pretty solid pieces. And then the big downgrade is you flipped Lowry for Goran Dragic. The only other players you really lost are DeAndre Bembry, Paul Watson, Stanley Johnson, Aaron Baines, Alex Len. So like not guys you're really melting down about, I don't think. Now, so all of that would be logical and you'd understand it and you could see where there's room for optimism. Where my issue comes in is, and it's not just the Giannis chase, but they did spend 2 years building a certain path of flexibility. And it was part of the reason for like the Norman Powell, Gary Trent trade. Yes, Trent is earning slightly less and only having to go 3 years versus 5 years is a real difference. And Trent is in his pre-peak phase, whereas Powell's in his late peak phase. All those things matter. Part of the draw of that, though, was also that Trent carries a much lower cap hold. And in a scenario where Lowry left, it wouldn't have been crazy difficult to carve out enough cap space to chase a guy, whether that's a Holmes, whether you want to force Cleveland to go further than 20 million flat a year for Jared Allen. You want to chase Josh Hart with an RFA deal that's more than the mid-level, whatever your choice. So I think it's not a bad offseason in terms of who is on the roster now versus the start of last season. But one, selling fans on, well, we made 2 of these moves during the season last year is a little tough. And then 2, the flexibility that they'd been building, which, didn't seem like it was just for Giannis. They kind of punted on that. And punted is maybe not fair because technically they used that space to land Precious Achiuwa, who has, 3 years left on his deal at less than $10 million total. So you could frame it as, hey, we used our cap flexibility to take on Dragic and got paid Precious Achiuwa for that. You could certainly logic it that way, but I understand perception-wise why some people might not love the series of moves. On top of which, Gary Trent and Ken Burch both have an element of like, those deals aren't terrible, but who are you bidding against?
Mm-hmm.
Like Gary Trent Jr. deal is very player friendly. And the Ken Burch deal came in about 15% higher than I expected. And I'm not sure who they were bidding against. So
I was surprised at both of those deals. Gary Trent Jr. especially. Burch with bigs, especially under 10 million, the variation is like, who knows what's even happening, and like in-house what they think of a player can vary a lot. And you see like really crazy deals for bigs all the time. But to see Holmes at 11 and Burch is at I think you pointed this out on your Twitter, 666, and like there's been a bunch of weird
yeah, so the number didn't actually come in at that, unfortunately. The second year on his deal, if it was a straight 20 million, was going to be 666. But his deal is actually technically $20 million and 2,750 at the end. So it avoids the rounding. And Trent's too actually came in lower than reported. So Trent's is 3 years, 51.84 million, which drops his first year salary to 16 million flat. So no longer any 666s. The Raptors no longer punk rock.
That would have worked well with Gary Trent Jr.'s emoji usage, I think. Very punk rock emoji usage. Okay, yeah. So I've talked elsewhere on this podcast about Gary Trent Jr., and there'll be plenty to talk about during the year, but he didn't play at Summer League. And Scotty Barnes, Dalano Banton, David Johnson, Wainwright, Champagny, all these guys played at Summer League. Do you have a short list of guys who wowed, and any like cliff notes on why they wowed you?
Yeah, I think, the important thing with Summer League is always don't look bad. It's not necessarily look good, because if you're Scotty Barnes and you just went 4th overall, you better look good. And if you're Malachi Flynn and you were a first round pick last year and have half a year in an NBA rotation, you better look good. So those caveats applied. I have thought Malachi Flynn has looked awesome. He's only shooting 40% on twos, but he's hitting 41.4% on a heavy volume of threes, which obviously, I think every Raptors fan knows that was kind of the piece that wasn't there yet with his offense, even though mechanically he looked really good. So that's good. The confidence level on that, the tough shot making from 3-point range. I think it was Assad that joked on Twitter that he misses every wide open catch and shoot, and then he hits every shot where like there's a defender draped on him and he gets an and one. I thought he's looked kind of the role of like that floor generally role to settle guys. I actually had a really good conversation with him in Vegas too, and just about what last year was like, and kind of having studied under Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet and where that has him at in terms of like, hey, the second unit is yours this year. And so I think he's impressed in that regard. I think him and Precious having a nice chemistry early on is a potentially good indicator for that second unit. It's the Raptors. The second unit's always going to struggle to score a little bit. It's just who they are. But you have Flynn, Achua, probably Scotty Barnes when Pascal Siakam's healthy. And if not Barnes, then Gary Trent. So you have a little bit of juice there, plus whichever role players, break out of that competition. So Malachi's been the guy that stood out. From the deeper players, I thought Ish Wainwright has won some fans pretty quickly. Another guy who's not shooting exceptionally well, 31.6% on threes. But he did, these are small samples. And the fact that he had a 4 of 6 game from three is, I think, a good indicator of, what his potential is as a corner shooter. He does have a little bit of Bruce Brown / PJ Tucker to him, where he's 6'5", but really on offense, like, is he a 4 standing in the corner? Is he a 5 sometimes, using that big frame to screen? Little bit of playmaking, little bit of passing ability, but really, a guy like that, you just need him to do enough offensively to get his defense on the floor, because he's pretty good on that end. Maybe not elite level quickness, but the strength and versatility to guard a couple positions there. So, and also just like a very Raptors style ball hawk, right? Like poke everything loose that you can, hit the deck to save it. And that's been up and down the roster. Dalano Banton's gotten a lot of steals. We saw a couple instances of Scotty Barnes hitting the deck for a loose ball, or, there was one, I think it was the first game, where he's on his ass and like fakes a pass and waits for the transition sprinter to go by and hits him from on his butt. So a few impressive things like that. But I guess at a first pass, it's kind of, Malachi looking every bit the part. And then of the new guys, Ish has kind of stood out. And then obviously, such a good story there, and a pretty tremendous guy, it seems like.
Okay. And with Malachi, just to dig a little bit further, there's obviously significant shot making pop from three that you brought up. As far as getting downhill, he's got plenty of wiggle. He is a wiggly guy. There's plenty of shake in his off the dribble game. But when as far as the Raptors for a while now, outside of Kyle Lowry, haven't been able to ask many players to generate downhill momentum, rim pressure. Malachi Flynn looks very good, but doesn't look like that type of player either. Do you think that's more likely to get in the cards, or Grift King type of stuff? What are you looking for him to add?
Yeah, I think, realistically, at his size and his athletic profile, it's probably going to have to be the Grift style. He's a very good change of pace dribbler in kind of like a Jose Calderon-ish way, where it's like, okay, you're not fast necessarily, but your ability to play at different speeds kind of tricks a defender, right? He does have some nice hesitation moves to his game too, but I think similar to a VanVleet, at the rim and in terms of rim pressure, at that size and athletic profile, you're going to have to make some really difficult shots. And we've seen him do that. He had a very difficult and one the other day. And there's some ability there to do that. So you don't rule it, like he's not going to get 0 shots at the rim, but I think that his drives are going to be, the biggest threat there is first the pocket pass that he's really coming along with. Second, kind of that delay roll over the top pass that he hit Precious with twice this week. And then, as a tertiary option, probably to try to get to the rim and score that way. So the one thing that I might like to see from him in terms of the funk to add to that. You've got the tempo change already, but maybe let's see a little bit of that, like free throw line, Etuan Moore stuff, like let's get a little floater package there. And it's something that, I'd hope Fred VanVleet's been crafting a little bit too. If you can't get to the rim, gnashing it and resetting it and looking for your big that way is helpful. But sometimes, especially if you've got your defender in jail, kind of that little push shot against a dropping big can be a really valuable weapon.
Yeah, agreed. It'll be interesting to see what both of them add. And especially since Malachi, as you said, like you just don't want to look bad. Not only does he have half a season roughly of NBA experience, but he's also very old for a guy who has as much NBA experience as he does. So you want him to look good. He looked a little bit bigger as well. Scotty Barnes. Let's do the Barnes stuff. Yeah. Big muscles, big body, big man, big trouble. Okay. Scotty Barnes. There are two plays that really, really intrigued me outside of like all of his chaos agent stuff that even at Florida State, he had like lose the dribble, spin into the lane, shovel pass to the guy cutting from the 45 that nobody saw. Lots of stuff like that. Very good. Not to like get too draft Twitter with it, but like proprioception, really noticing himself in space and that kind of stuff. But I think there were two plays. One was the little half spin and then turn back and hit the fadeaway. He got his leg around his defender, who was Kuminga at the time. He actually stepped around him as part of the fake, then came back. The balance was really impressive. And then the next one, kind of similar to what Brandon Ingram does on the right wing, his spinning fade, the amount of ground he covers is like 9 feet or something close to it. It's
right. I think Will Liu posted a screenshot of that one.
He did,
this morning.
Yes.
Yeah. And like how do you guard that? First of all, what defender can cover that amount of space and track you that in that short amount of time? And also, like, even if you can, how do you get a hand up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's got that in his bag. He had a couple pull-ups. He hit some catch and shoot stuff. What have you made of the progress as far as like his ball skills, his jump shot, and then maybe just his apparent threshold for never willing to look something away for himself? He believes he's capable of everything.
Yeah, he's cool, man. He's a lot of fun. I think, I think I'd rather have a guy at this point who's fits his profile than the opposite, where like he's trying to make a lot happen and there are occasionally these flashes of him being able to do incredible stuff, and then like some of the easier stuff is not there for him yet. And I don't know if that's like, I always think of the term kind of big paws on a puppy from The Wire, and it's like, oh yeah, like he's seeing what to do and he can like physically get there and do those things, but like there's just like a tiny disconnect between skill and like the skill level and the mental side where he knows what to do. And that's just like, there've been a couple times where he has these really great, powerful drives into the paint and gets 2 feet in there and then just like loses the handle or flubs the layup or something like that. Or, he's a very creative passer. Some of these dump offs that he does, dump off isn't the right term. They're like bullet off passes. Poor Freddie Gillespie is, they are not the smoothest dump off duo, Scotty Barnes and Freddie Gillespie. But all that's to say, he's doing the higher level stuff and he's trying the higher level stuff. And I think as far as an indicator goes, you like that a little better than a guy who's coming out and be passive or is trying to go into the post every time and just go over top of guys. Like, one of the warning signs here would maybe be if Barnes was just, especially because he's playing the perimeter more here, if he was just trying to take smaller guys into the post and he wasn't trying to beat a center off the dribble or, attack off DHO or something like that. I think those would be bigger concerns. Offensively though, look, no one's hidden the fact that this is going to be a bit of a work in progress. And right now, I think the passing is primarily a transition weapon. I know he's got 13 assists over the 4 games, but to me, it's those outlet passes and hit ahead passes where he's looked his best. In the half court, I think because the handle's not all the way there yet and because he's telegraphing a little bit, the half court playmaking, it doesn't like blow you away yet. But again, he's a rookie who's power forward size, and any amount of playmaking is probably pretty encouraging. The jump shot, I don't know. He's going to get lots of reps at it. They're going to give him the green light. The fact that he's shooting well on free throws is maybe a positive indicator just about the growth there. Him yelling "bang bitch" after threes is a positive indicator about the confidence level. And it's giving all our wonderful Raptors artists on Raptors Twitter lots of material. And then, I think defensively, he's there, right? Like you mentioned the draft Twitter terms, his processing speed on defense is unbelievable. He knows where a play is going. He has the physical tools to cover a lot of space and track a lot of space comfortably. I think there's some work to do with like hip fluidity to really open up his lateral quickness and his switchability onto guards. But I think right now, like 3-4, he's going to be a really good defender, maybe even 2-3-4-5. By the time the season rolls around, he's just like for a rookie, the level of defensive anticipation and just the defensive foundation he's working from could be really special. Not errorless throughout the course of Summer League. I thought the back-to-back, the second night of that, he looked a little slow and maybe like not elite conditioning right now. But, he's like a week into his NBA career. We got some time here.
Is Fernando Tatis going to be a really good defensive shortstop, do you think? I'm going somewhere with this, I promise.
Okay, I don't think so. There's been a lot of chatter that he's going to move to the outfield, right?
I thought that was just for this year because of his injury or whatever.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay. Who's the guy in the MLB that has the most clear indicators of elite defense, but is just like a little bit more mistake prone?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know we were going to have baseball questions on the quiz.
That's the whole back half of this podcast is Blake teaches Sam about baseball, I thought.
No, I get where you're going with, but it's a little bit of a tough comparison because like most of baseball's really good defenders can't hit. And I know that that's where you're going with it a little bit, but it's a tough one. Like you're probably getting into a lot of catchers in that stuff. I guess like maybe Willy Adames is a good example. Like he's been a top prospect and elite shortstop defense. I think he's hitting really well since he got traded, but he was like kind of a bummer in Tampa Bay.
Well, he said he couldn't hit there. Like he said he couldn't see in the stadium, which is a really weird.
Yeah.
That's no good. Half your games.
But man, like his strikeout rate has dropped dramatically and his walk rate has spiked dramatically. I don't know. Like his WRC plus is double what it was before. There might be something to it.
He probably was telling the truth.
Yeah. Maybe that's my answer. First half of the season, Willy Adames.
Okay. I was going to try and make some sort of comparison to Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who very clearly has the tools to be like a very good defender, but the application of them seems to have gone awry.
Okay. So I misunderstood where you were. I thought you were looking for who's a really good defender and their offense is not really all the way there yet.
No, because I liked Scottie's offense from what I saw, in Summer League games. It's not that he's, looking incredibly comfortable, but I think he was more impressive than I might have expected. But I just, I wanted to work your guy in there somehow. And I thought of all arms and legs, a lot of talent, but some goofy route efficiency. But Scotty Barnes,
a lot of vibes too.
Yeah, but Scotty Barnes is arms, legs, vibes, but he has the route efficiency. Yeah, unlike our guy Lourdes. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, here's my question too. With Scottie and Dalano in particular, and after kind of the Jalen Harris, like We the North, Gary Trent Jr., is it possible that the Raptors are drafting for content creation potential? Is that part of this?
Yeah, I mean, look, you go through as a franchise 20 years of feeling like you get no coverage and everyone forgets about you. So after that, your draft strategy is just like, no, everyone we draft either has to be hilarious or have a gimmick like OG or have your own branding like Pascal and Norm and Fred. They're not going to give us the media. We're going to have to take it ourselves, kind of thing. But Malachi's the flub there, because not a lot of content there, not a lot of enthusiasm for the We the North thing.
But Raptor Nation, he came with a dad
Raptor
who
Nation,
provided
that's
content
true.
creation as well. Maybe they looked into it. They're like, Eric, right? Yeah, Eric, are you going to be posting? What do you have in your bag?
Yeah, this is where, Justin Champagny and David Johnson. Let's see it, guys. Come on.
David Johnson looks like 21 Savage, so maybe there's a parody in there. Okay, let's talk David Johnson then, because I, by proxy of having a lot of conversations with the wonderful Henry Ward, was starting to really come around on David Johnson, who Henry said like, hey, maybe he's a lottery guy for him. And while I don't have a running board of whether I think guys are lottery or anything, I just have guys I like because I do basically just a cursory glance at the draft. What did you think of David in his summer league performances?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I was not the biggest David Johnson fan prepping for the draft. I think just from a pure production standpoint, as a sophomore, you're pretty underwhelmed with his second season. You dig into the tape though, and like it was a bit of a weird situation with him and Carlik Jones together. You go back and you watch his freshman year, and it's much more encouraging, right? It's this guy, like probably in retrospect, he should have come out after his freshman year and he would have looked a lot better. But he also had like multiple left shoulder things during his college career that maybe kept him from doing that, or maybe, pandemic wise, he didn't want to. Unfortunately, now dealing with a right shoulder strain that's kept him out of the last game and a half. So Johnson's interesting to me where defensively, he's a huge guard, right? Like he's not like super thick or anything, but the length is tremendous. And if he can get the finer points of defense down, you could have a real on-ball weapon there, in kind of like the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope mode of just covering a lot of space and keeping that initial penetration from happening at the point of attack. And I just think, based on watching him a little bit, and certainly based on these three summer league games, he's pretty far away from turning that into actual defensive production. There are obviously moments. He is a hilarious closeout artist because, that length and speed, but also the lack of, he's the polar opposite of Yuta, where Yuta has these super disciplined closeouts all the time where he's got the hand up and he can test, but he offers no quarter on the drive. Whereas David Johnson's just right by you. And if I don't block it, have a shot at it. So I think there's real defensive potential there. He's just, there's a reason he's on a two-way. And then offensively, look, I got told he's had a really good like camp and lead up to this. I didn't think he played super well offensively in the summer league games. Like obviously he shot under 30%, and you can look past that, but it was also like an almost 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, some tough decision making at times. So I think, he's pretty toolsy if you see him as kind of a combo guard, as they do. There are some tools at each end to like. I just think, it certainly looks to me like this past year was not a lost development year from him, but he didn't get a lot better. And so I think, two-way is the right spot for him in a good developmental system.
Okay. And Banton then, the guy who was huge on Raptors social media, he was teaching everybody the slang, how to talk like a Toronto man, all that kind of stuff. Or Toronto, that, no T. Yeah. Nice that beak. Okay, let's do Dalano. What'd you think of him? I mean, he was part of the ripping and roaring 5 points in like 9 minutes for the opposing team, 1 million steals. Like, what did you think? He's a very confusing and interesting player.
I think his ability to get Scottie Lewis to inbound him the ball in a tie game with 20 seconds left is elite. It's he's the only player that could get Scottie Lewis to just, hey, can I have that? I'm joking.
Give me that.
Yeah, give me that. But yeah, he's fun, man, and he's another guy that like he got an NBA deal, but he's going to be a 905 regular. Like, he is not ready for NBA minutes yet. I think the full guarantee this year and the second year on the deal tell you how optimistic the Raptors are that they can turn this into a productive player. And it's not super hard to see how that would happen. He's a 6'9" point guard with these huge strides in transition. He's another guy like Flynn who like he's fast for 6'9", but he's really kind of on his own pace guy, right? There's just some funk to him that's going to make him hard to defend. Obviously, the length defensively is really cool. A lot of mistakes in summer league so far, like a negative assist to turnover ratio. But I think probably the thing that I've taken most from Dalano, and this was the case in 3 of the games, I think, and it came up in my notes in 3 of the 4 games, is that he has gotten better as the game's gone along each time. And sure, that happens sometimes, like just randomly, and it's noise. But I think for a high IQ player like him, who a lot of the coaches had mentioned, like, oh, he picks stuff up really quickly. I think an environment like this where, this is tougher competition than he's seen, and he has the freedom to make some mistakes here. I think that's good for him. I think, that's a good way to learn. And you, again, like we talked about with Scottie a little bit, you almost at this stage prefer the errors of guys trying to do too much versus guys who are making errors by being too passive. So yeah, I think he's going to be really fun with the 905. I think he might be the starting point guard. Yeah, I think he's going to be really fun. But like Johnson and like Champagny, like the Raptors are kind of, we maybe got it twisted up last year because of the G League bubble and the enhanced two-way rules and stuff. Those 3 guys are going to be G Leaguers in my mind. Like, I'm not penciling out any of them into when we do our rotation breakdowns or anything like that. Like, I think those are their development pieces. And after using those spots for a couple of years on guys who could maybe help now, I think the Raptors are kind of pivoting back to, okay, we gotta dig some long-term upside out of these plays.
That makes sense. That was the next thing I was going to ask you, was what position do you think Dalano actually plays in the NBA? Because
what position does anyone on the Raptors play?
OG, Pascal, caricature, something like that.
Malachi Flynn is the only player on this team with a position.
Fred to some degree, maybe.
Or well, I'm even thinking like if they played together, Fred would be off the ball, and Fred has shown he can defend bigger guys and stuff like that. So,
do you think Fred would be off the ball a lot? Do you think?
I mean, Malachi I think so. He's just such a good shooter, right?
Well, you and I definitely agree on that, and like how he should be utilized. But the Raptors have kind of gone maybe a little bit different way with more on-ball reps.
But I mean, also that might have been like in part like developmentally, right? Like and I thought he improved a lot as a pick and roll passer last year. But yeah, like I think, isolate a single possession, and how do you want to optimize that with Flynn and Van Vliet on the floor? Like Van Vliet's probably on the second side, or he initiates and then relocates. So anyway.
Okay, so let's do the context of initiating, primary or secondary. Dalano, if nobody likes projecting that much, but I'll put you in an uncomfortable spot. If you had to project what he's going to succeed at more often, G League versus NBA, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think probably right now he needs to be on the ball a little bit more because he's not at all an outside shooting threat. And while he's pretty smart and has like some pretty good spatial stuff going on, I don't know if the like cutting and offensive rebounding ability overcomes the like, this guy's a non-shooter who probably needs to be in the dunker if he doesn't have the ball. And like, I'm being reductive here because we're talking in pretty broad strokes, but yeah, I think he needs the ball in his hands a little bit more to, not even needs, but like, he's a 6'9" point guard. The whole point is that he's so special and weird because he can handle at that size. And like, he doesn't have to be a quote unquote point guard. Like, you can end up being a Sean Livingston type. Hey, sometimes you're going to initiate off the ball. Sometimes you'll be in the post of the dunker. Sometimes, you're just out there for vibes. It can go a lot of different ways, but I think for right now, yeah, you want the ball in his hands. You want to see, can he be like a point guard? Because the whole thing with the way they're building the roster is like, they have Van Vliet and Flynn, but everyone else, it's supposed to be, the offense from 3 or 4 different trigger points, and it makes you really difficult to guard against. So I think they'd like to, especially with 905, have the ball in his hands a lot to bring those skills along. Now, they probably want to do the same with David Johnson because they want to turn him from more of a 2 guard into a combo, but there are lots of minutes and touches to go around.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting. Like, there's a bunch of different ways for tall guys with ball skills to make themselves valuable. Slow-mo, for example, in Memphis, is super unique usage for him. Like, even they used him as an initiator specifically for a lot of Jonas Valanciunas plays. Caitlin Cooper wrote a really good piece about that. And it's just, Banton, if he hits, and as you were saying, like, really high feel, picks things up very quickly, who knows how he can apply himself and his length against half court defenses and stuff like that. Should be really interesting. And are you going to tell people I did that I housed your inbounds pass? Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing with Banton is, like, this is going to apply to like 90% of rookies. He's got to get stronger. And, that might be, I think, a part of Ishmael Wainwright's salary is as a strength coach. And like, Banton's got to get stronger for a number of reasons, right? Like finishing, defense, being able to absorb some contact as you're driving to keep the pass open, like, so you don't have to barrel into guys and pick up a bunch of charges. And, but yeah, he'll get there, I think.
Yeah. So how many, there's 4 or 5 roster spots that appear to be, there's an element of competition for them. And there's 6 guys who are going to be competing for that. If I have that a rough estimate of it.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what you count Banton as. So let's say Banton has one locked up because he has a full guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, you have 5 guys competing for 4 spots and 2 open roster spots still for the camp battles, where you could see, another Isak Bonga type get in there. Maybe someone taller than 6'9" at some point too, but we'll see.
Hartenstein, is he like guaranteed anywhere, or is he still?
No, he's unsigned still as of this writing or recording.
Well,
awkwardly, him and Gillespie have the same agent, so like, if Gillespie gets cut, obviously there's space for another center type. So
I like Hartenstein. He's got some passing chops that are.
Yeah, I like him too. I
mean, we did this a year ago.
Yeah, or he's ahead of Gillespie at this point, but but also, like, Gillespie's better than this.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bizarre that, like, you can have 20 NBA games and look substantially better against NBA competition than you do against summer league competition. It's so bizarre how basketball works sometimes. But yeah,
maybe
anyway,
he's we got a system player.
Yeah, we got 5 guys competing for 4 spots, maybe only 3 spots if they keep it tighter to deduct the tax, but I don't think that's going to be the case given the guarantees they've given out and stuff.
So Dekker, Yuta, it guarantees if he makes the team, right?
So this is the thing, is everyone except Wainwright guarantees in full if they make the team. So this is where, like, in years past, you've maybe, if you don't do that, the benefit is, so say with Wainwright, he only has $250K guarantee. You could keep him. That's more than a quarter of his contract. You could keep him on the roster for a quarter of the season and basically punt that decision 20 games, right? Like, he could hold a spot and then you keep him 20 games and then waive him. Then there's no difference in cost because you're just playing out the guaranteed portion. The other 4 guys all guarantee in full on opening night. So the Raptors did that with KJ McDaniels a couple years ago, kept him on the roster an extra like week or 2 to eat up that guarantee they'd already given him. And then, who knows, maybe something clicks in a practice or something like that. So yeah, there's possibility to do that with Wainwright. Everyone else, though, you make the team, you get the money.
Are there any guys you like for the inside track? Obviously, I am pulling for Yuta the same way I was last offseason. I think that would be great. And I thought he had like a really fun Olympics, and I think that he was starting to discover a little bit more of his offensive zest, like a little bit more confidence in his, ability to put the ball on the ground, because he showed those skills with the Memphis Hustle like quite a bit. But any other guys? Because I'm pulling for Yuta, and then Otherwise, it seems like kind of a wash. I don't want Dekker, but that's a personal thing, and so, I'm not super updated on his positions and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
I'm not ready to talk specifics on this, other than to say I've had some pretty good conversations about that, and have something. We'll probably publish something at some point, to where I'm more comfortable with it than I was when the initial signing happened, and I remembered all that stuff. So, yeah, we could talk about that more another time. Obviously, we're not just gonna, this is not the right forum to kind of give that all the context it needs, and I don't want to just blow past it. But for the sake of analysis, he's in there on a partial guarantee, and it's a $350,000 partial guarantee. It's a big one. So the big thing with Dekker is, he had 4 years in the league. He went from not playing at all to playing heavy rotation minutes to not playing at all to playing heavy rotation minutes. He never got sent to the G League for that developmental stuff. Bounced around. He played for 4 different teams. And, that alone can be a red flag sometimes. And the big thing was he only shot 28% on a low volume of threes. So for a catch and slash guy who's very athletic and has some good size, not hitting the threes kind of undercuts your slashing game, right? So that's been the big change with Dekker overseas. He's really become a shooter, and that's opened up that slashing skill more. Sorry, I lied. He played 7 G League games. Good plan, Houston. But yeah, like he hit 41.8% of a high volume of threes this year, with Turkey, playing with my guy Tyler Ennis for a little bit. Tyler Ennis told me that the 3-point shooting spike is only because of his passing. Tyler Ennis taking credit, to which I said, could you improve my 3-point shooting then? And I never got a response. But yeah, like Dekker fits the mold of what they're looking for with these spots, as kind of a combo forward with some slashing skill, some secondary passing skill, emerging shooting. And it's just, they're looking for that from a couple spots. Like, can you defend enough, and can you keep the offense moving? And they very clearly see like a size and skill combination that they like, and they want to see which one of these guys clicks. And, 2 of them might make the team, but Yuta, Dekker, and Wainwright seem like they're kind of spiritually competing. Wainwright's a little smaller than the other 2, but he's also really, really versatile defensively. So Dekker, the big thing will be, is that shooting improvement real? And then Watanabe, I'm with you. I thought he looked great for Japan. I really think, and we've seen this with other guys in international action before, I really think being forced into that bigger role will be great for him, because so much of it has been like the defense is obvious, the IQ and feel are obvious. I shouldn't say IQ. The feel is obvious. The role recognition and the role certainty is there. And it's like, you've got to expand out of this role a little bit, man. Like, you can try more, you can put it on the floor for yourself, or you can jack those threes up with a tighter window. And I think that's what they've been trying to drive home for him. And I think Japan needing him to do that as kind of the 1B to Rui will probably be really good for him long term. And my colleague Eric Green had a great chat with Yuta at Summer League and had an article up about it. I think that registered with him as well. I think he knows what he has to do to kind of take this next step now. But I think also, like, he's got a $375,000 guarantee, and he was pretty solid in the NBA last year. It's going to be hard to knock Yuta out of one of those spots.
Yeah, I'm all for Yuta. I think it's you now. He's not a kid, but if you hang around like college players who go from, junior varsity, whatever, when you're making the jump, you could see players who have independently significantly better on-ball skills. They're a way better shooter in any type of isolated thing, and they just need time to apply to a different context. Yuta seems like, as you said, a prime candidate to keep applying his independently very good skills to the context, which he seemed a little bit, gun shy, for lack of a better term. And so, yeah, very excited for him.
Gun shy. You know who's not gun shy? Precious Achua. Did you see those after
the finger guns? Yeah, man.
He was dishes and dimes honorary finger guns.
Is that I don't know that reference.
I'll leave that for them to tell, but that's I think it started with dishes and dimes in Vegas. It may have got back to anyway, I'll leave that for them to tell. That's real heads only, but
okay. Finger guns. Okay.
Yeah.
As far as Isak Bonga, for our second, I think you should leave reference at the store of Masai Flashes. That's my exact style, courtesy of Dana Smart. What are your thoughts on Isak?
Yeah. So I think he's fun. I think there's some real potential there. I think he was on my list of low cost targets the Raptors should go after this offseason. And the reason is, he's another 6'8" guy who can handle a little bit. And in his case, he's only 21 still. So, you don't want to run into the Stanley Johnson thing where a guy has played 5,000 NBA minutes and you're still being like, oh, but he's 23. Like maybe there's developmental room there still. But Bonga's coming from the Lakers, who have not been the shiniest example of player development, to the Wizards, who certainly haven't been the shiniest example of player development. And then like weirdly, maybe it was purely on merit, but in 2019, 2020, he shot like 50% overall and 35% on threes and 80 plus from the free throw line. Like he was 50, 35, 80, which for at that point, a 19-year-old with some ball skill is pretty good. And if you're committed to development, like throw him the minutes, throw him the touches. And then last year, he just like barely played. And it was really hard to see where he was at. Like, I didn't see a ton of him last year. And I don't like, maybe he took a big step backwards, but maybe also he just like it was situational and they had kind of tapped out on him. But I think, there's some intrigue there. Like, I won't go as far as some of the people on Wizards Twitter who think he's a point guard, quote unquote, but he's another 6'8" guy with great length who can handle a little bit. Another guy who needs to put on a substantial amount of weight, but there's a little bit of Bantonness to it in terms of like, well, what's the draw and what are you looking for out of this guy? What do you think you could turn him into? He would have been. You can't do this. He's probably too established as a former number 39 pick who's had like a full season starting in the NBA. He would have been super interesting to me on a two-way. And this would have been his last year of eligibility on that. But he got a $200K guarantee. So that's out the window now. But yeah, I could see him as like, a 15th man who's also spending some G League time. He'd have to approve it at this point, but I'm sure they talked to him about what that developmental process would look like. I thought he looked pretty solid in the Olympics too. He had a couple fun games, a couple fun moments. So, that's where I'm at. Like we haven't seen the guy in a year, basically at the NBA level, but with his age and size and kind of nascent ball skill, like you certainly get it. I don't think he's a favorite to win a spot, but I would understand it.
The Raptors are cooking up a real funk fest, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah. The Raptors are like Bobby Webster was like kind of joking about having a whole team of like, why not make the whole plane out of Pascal Siakam's? But like he wasn't entirely like, even Precious like thinks he probably, he's bought in a little bit in these summer league games, a little bit more to the identity I think he's going to have to play with the Raptors, which is like, you're a center, even though your size doesn't suggest it necessarily, just because like they need those minutes. And like his ball skill as a center is much more impressive than his skill package if he's a 4. But even he's a guy who can like, the rip and run, grab a defensive rebound and push full court. He's another guy who can do it. And has looked like, at least with Nigeria, looked really good defensively. So.
Any other guys you think the listeners should know about before we get out of here?
I think there's probably a couple guys who are going to find their way to camp, specifically with the 905. in mind. Like they do have 2 open spots, and usually those last couple spots will go to Exhibit 10 guys who, you know, can be converted or kept on the roster, but more likely they're getting waived and they make 905 pieces. There's also always the potential for the no day Exhibit 10, which is like the Raptors have done this every year. You cut a couple guys early and then you sign new Exhibit 10s in their spot and also waive them, so you can kind of cheat the extra Exhibit 10s. So there are a few names like that I'd expect to come up. But yeah, in terms of like guys they could add for those 2 final spots right now, I don't have a great feel. I think, you know, you line up what the roster looks like maybe you want another point guard and another, like a true center in there fighting. But we're talking about the end of the roster spots. I'm also entirely fine with just like, take the upside play. Like if you're 15th man, the guy who makes the roster as the 15th man, if you run into a situation at one point where you need him to contribute and he can't because your position balance is off or whatever, a lot more has gone wrong than the choice you made in that 15th roster spot. Like I think back to the campaign Isaiah Taylor camp year where they ended up keeping Malcolm Miller instead of a third point guard, which is campaign's Joker origin story. But, you know, that's kind of the mind I'm at is, you know, especially at the back of the roster, get the best guys or the guys you see with the highest developmental upside. So I don't have names for you. We'll see after Summer League who gets deals and who doesn't and stuff like that. But yeah.
I mean, I'd always go with the upside play. I don't.
Yeah.
The Raptors,
like within reason.
Yeah.
Like their entire team is power forwards or like combo forwards right now, but also who cares? You look at what Jason Thompson, an established veteran, he came in, he has a later rotation spot. Was that super meaningful? Or would it, you know, it's not the buyout market, but that roster spot for somebody who maybe had something else in the tank? Like, why not? It's a game dominated by the top end guys. So it's also like a shift in philosophy of like, do you have Kawhi Leonard on your roster and you're trying to maximize every minute anyone's on the floor, so you got to go Jody Meeks? Or are you kind of in like a reestablishment year and you need to find a guy who's going to be, you know, you're trying to find the guy who could be a part of the rotation in 2023, maybe if things work out.
And just
which Jody Meeks can't be.
Yeah. Get guys who won't steal assists from Pascal, like just completely fumble the ball out just so there's like some
Freddie Gillespie's cut then. Poor guy's robbed Scotty Barnes a few times. Gillespie thing's so weird, man. Like he's got that September 5th partial guarantee trigger and it's only 50,000. So my bet would be he's still in the mix, but the poor guy has had just the most snake bitten summer league so far.
Got to have a really good camp, probably.
Yeah, I mean, if he even gets there, right? Like 50K is 50K.
I hope he gets it. I hope every player gets every partial guarantee, whatever.
Yeah,
that's the pro labor stance. I'm a pro labor guy. That's kind of my whole thing. That's
team that spends more than one or less than $1 shy of the luxury tax is robbing labor.
I don't know how many other podcast guys for like team have had a labor union worker come on and talk about podcast stuff. That's me. So I have on
Oh,
Abdul.
right. Yeah. Sorry, I forget about that.
He's too big now. He's
been having too much success on the writing side that I kind of forget that's where he's rooted. But yeah. Comrade Abdul.
Let's go. To be that talented, he's just got his hand in like 6 different cookie jars and succeeds at all of them. Good for him.
So do the Raptors with this with these camp battles. 5 different guys with partial guarantees.
Fingers crossed. Okay. OG Anunoby walks in the gym with a bright pink do-rag and his big glasses. What are your immediate thoughts?
My immediate thoughts was, please step out of the tunnel long enough for me to get a picture of this.
And who ended up getting the picture?
I mean, they put him on the broadcast at one point. I did take a picture and it's grainy because it's like very zoomed in and like OG's head is like sticking out from the corner this much. And Gary Trent has, I think, a bandana and a face mask on. So there's like, you can see like this much Gary Trent and it's a ridiculous photo. I didn't run into OG. I was pretty sad. I saw pretty much everyone else, but
Who was all there? Do you have a
literally every person on the roster except Goran Dragic was in Vegas at some point?
Okay, I'm gonna take my Dragic stance right now, and I'm curious to see how you feel. I don't
disagree
care.
with you, whatever it is.
Okay, yeah. Oh, this again. I don't care. Like I like there's like translation, but also maybe he was just trying to endear himself to Raptors fans who were so vocal about like get this guy out of here, and he's like, yeah, I'd like to be out of here, and they're like, hey, wait, you son of a bitch, you don't get to say that. Only we get to say that.
Yeah, you can't quit. You're fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a big problem with him being honest, and I think probably he didn't choose his words the best, but I also thought like there were people who were like, oh, his apologies just PR, which first of all, yes, of course it is. You put your foot in your mouth, that's what you do. But also, as far as PR apologies go, you've won a championship and I haven't, is a really good line to try to smooth things over with the fan base. Like you couldn't ask for him to say anything more like praise of the franchise and self-defeating than I got no rings and you do. So I don't know. I think it's the media cycle. It is what it is. I'm a little surprised something didn't get done. I think certainly the way that their tax sheet looks, they're anticipating moving off of him at some point, whether it's now or at the deadline or something like that, because they're over the tax right now, the way things look. But yeah, I think he'll be gone at some point. But if he plays 40 games as a Raptor first, that'd be all right. Second unit could use another guard to help Malachi run that show.
Is it blasphemous that I want Goran starting?
I mean, it's probably fine. I think skill set wise with the other starters, Trent probably makes more sense, but because like you're pretty light on shooting. And okay. You don't need Trent to dribble if he's in the starting lineup.
Oh, he'll dribble. He's gonna dribble.
Okay, he might dribble. You won't pass. That's true. I don't know. I like the idea of like the vet guy helping Flynn in the second unit a little bit, but
sure, that's
you can also change it up. You don't have to start the same guys 82 games.
Do we have a kind of a term that operates just as effectively as buddy cop? Are we moving off of buddy cop? Like, is there some sort of other thing?
All cops are,
right. So I'm wondering, like, I was gonna say buddy cop for Malachi and Goran, but is there, a substitute?
Yeah, I mean the other one's like bromance, but I don't really like that because it's kind of heteronormative and like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe buddy cop's the best we could do for now.
Well, bromance is only for you and I think.
Yeah. I'll think on it.
Okay.
See. But I get what you're saying though. You got a little rush.
We gotta innovate. We gotta innovate.
Yeah. Although they're both like, I don't know if there's enough conflict in personality type.
They're both the straight man.
Yeah, it might be more of a like mentor mentee thing of like, and then like an eventual student becomes the teacher situation.
Okay.
That might be the more likely path for them. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that seems more appropriate.
Yeah. I can't see either of them emerging as like the funny guy. Like they're both the straight man. So it's tough.
Goran would have to assume form as like a kind of bumbling guy who keeps getting like smacked in the face over the course of his career, and he has like huge egg bumps.
Yes, but he's so tough though. Like like that might actually happen, but it's part of like a broader like gimmick of just being the toughest guy in the gym.
He's kind of like, I'm too old for this, but still super effective. Yeah. Okay.
And then him and Malachi are changing characters halfway through the movie.
Exactly. It's just like Community. Yeah.
I was thinking more Lethal Weapon 5.
I haven't seen Lethal Weapon 5. Is that a faux pas?
Come on, man. Always Sunny?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. They changed characters in the middle of the movie. Come on.
Right. I'm so sorry.
Unbelievable. Yes. Of all the people to not get the Always Sunny reference, the guy who for 3 months posted nothing but Always Sunny memes.
I was in a depraved mood for 3 months. It was a low point. I only had
a pandemic.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to apologize. When we started this, the sun was still up and I had no lights on. And then over the course of the podcast, I have had to turn my ring light on and then another lamp on. And it just struck me just how dark it is behind me. And it now looks like I'm like spooky and we're doing this over candlelight, which would be nice, honestly. But
is that appropriate for your mood? Or have you gotten more glowy since coming in? I think you might have.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to assume that I've cheered you up.
It gets closer to the end and I'm like, finally, this is over. And then
You get excited for our post-podcast conversation where we get to be pals. Any other summer league stories that you'd care to share?
Not really. I mean, the Raptors got a lot of good dudes that I think are really easy to root for. And I think Scottie kind of is the top of that. But Ishmael Wainwright is very, very nice and very cool. Wesley Johnson is coaching with the 905 this year, which should be a fun one. Nate Bjorkgren was around a bunch, but wasn't sure if he's rejoining the staff or not.
Well, he can't because then everybody would have to get rid of their do-rags.
Yeah. What else? Oh, I ran into a bunch of like ex-Raptors people, which was fun. So I ran into Jose Calderon at Starbucks, which was really nice. He's the nicest man in the world. Jerome and I saw Amari Stoudemire 3 days in a row working on his laptop at Starbucks as if he was a sports writer who doesn't have internet at home. Very funny. I know he's not an ex-Raptor, but while I was on Starbucks, ran into Landry Fields, who's now the assistant general manager of the Atlanta Hawks. Ran into Jama, got to spend some time with Jama. We were on the same flight out to Vegas. He's now at the Golden State Warriors. Jesse Murmis, the first ever coach of Raptors 905, caught up with him for a bit. He's Orlando Magic bound now, getting a promotion up the bench. Ran into O'Shea Brissett. It was great. It was a fun week. It's nice to see people again, even if it's from a distance. And
that's funny. Jose Calderon, I remember for the longest time, if you typed his name into Google, it would return his net worth as like 2.08 billion. Yeah. And it would say that his family owned like Coca-Cola producing factories or something like that, bottling factories.
Different,
but that wasn't true. Yeah.
No, you want basketball player / ham farmer Jose Calderon.
Still cookie jars.
Yeah.
Although not as many.
So what was I going to say? Oh yeah. I also got a real kick out of the first Raptor that Dalano Banton named when he's talking about his fandom was Jose Calderon.
That's
like
a changing of the tides.
It's not Chris Bosh. It's not Kyle Lowry. He's that sweet spot of how did you stick with basketball when these were the teams you first watched?
I'm waiting for Sonny Weems to get a shout out from a Toronto kid or the young guns, Amir, DeMar, Sonny.
Yeah.
Pretty. And Ed, right? Was Ed Davis part of the young guns?
Sometimes depends on whose Photoshop you looked at.
Oh, okay. Ed Davis.
Boss. And also the team co-opting it as young ones because we can't can't promote gun violence, of course.
Except for finger guns, naturally. Hell yeah. Okay. I feel like that's a good place to end it. Listener, I hope you enjoyed it very much. But Blake, it's your turn to just plug away. I won't call you Chap this time. I remember that was a whole deal.
Yeah. It's the Rondé Hollis Jefferson Chap I'm okay with, but the British Chap I'm not. Right. I don't have anything to promote. I mean, The Athletic, all my stuff's there. I don't know. I had lots of summer league stuff. I think I banked enough stuff to keep us flowing between now and the start of training camp at the end of September. So, keep an eye out. I will hopefully get a break sometime soon.
Sounds to me like there'll be a Wainwright piece. You seem like you like him a lot.
Oh yeah, there'll be a Wainwright piece.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
All sorts of good stuff.
Perfect. Okay, you have another podcast to do right away, so I'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, and a real podcast.
Dude, listen.
Sorry, man.
Okay.
It's better as a Twitter gimmick. It's harder in person because you blush and I feel bad.
Okay. Listener, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Blake, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Okay. And listener, if you want to rate or subscribe or whatever you do to make the podcast seem more attractive in an algorithmic sense, please do so. I don't really ask for this very often. And if you want to leave a nice review where you say nice things, hell yeah, I'd enjoy that a bunch. And if you don't want to say nice things, say them to me on Twitter instead of the forever forum that is the Apple Podcast review spot. So thank you. But whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.